to try a new segment. I call it The Deep Dive. Dance with me. Today, we're going to learn all about I Am Legend, the book that Last Man on Earth was based off of. Before we do, we'll start with some other stories that came before it. So first off, a definition of genres. 1. Apocalyptic. A sci-fi or sci-fantasy story that deals with the end of the world as we know it. Often includes dystopic or horror elements. Post-apocalyptic. A story that is set after an apocalyptic event, often dealing with shattered survivors, living without society, or if it's pessimistic, a dystopian perversion of old society. Lastly, Dying Earth, a sci-fi or sci-fantasy story that deals with the entropic exhaustion of Earth. Maybe resources ran out, causing slow collapse over thousands of years. Life doesn't end with a bang, but a whimper. Whereas apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic stories are often cautionary tales. Don't do X or the world will end. Dying Earth are typically more melancholic. The world will end. No matter what you do, it's just a matter of time. Some of the more prominent stories in these three genres include Le Dernier Homme, or Last Man, also known as Omegarus and Sideria, A Romance in Futurity, by Jean-Baptiste Cousin de Granville. This French novel is one of the first of the Dying Earth stories. However, it's more fantasy and allegory than most of its successors. Granville intended it as an homage or bookend to Milton's Paradise Lost. Just as Milton made an epic poem about the Book of Genesis, Granville made a poem based around the Book of Revelations. For example, characters include Ormus, the spirit of the earth, and Adam from the creation myth. Yeah, he's still around. But as one of the first Dying Earth stories, and it does have an airship, so 2 points. Next, The Last Man on Earth by Mary Shelley. Yes, the same Mary Shelley of Frankenstein fame. It features a plague that kills all of mankind except for one. As you'd expect from the mother of modern sci-fi, the book includes a lot of cutting-edge research on vaccines and pathology. Shelley took Le Dernier Homme and grounded it firmly in the real world. Although she's set it in the future, the far-off year of 2100. I gotta say, it's so common that we see old sci-fi stories set in the far-off year of 1970. It's really refreshing to have a future-based book that's still in the future. Although she wrote it in 1820s, and we're technically over the halfway point. So. However, it could be argued that the plague is really just a metaphor for the failure of the Enlightenment movement, and that the Last Man character is really just an author surrogate letting Mary express her feelings of loss about her husband. 4 points for passion and for being one of the first dystopian sci-fi novels. -1 point for lack of brevity. It's 3 volumes long and the plague doesn't even show up until book 2. Now, there are also several Dying Earth apocalyptic stories of note. The Conversation of Eros and Charmian by Edgar Allan Poe features 2 souls in the afterlife discussing how a comet set the atmosphere ablaze. The Time Machine by H.G. Wells includes both a post-apocalyptic society and a glimpse of a dying Earth, so that's double points. The House of the Borderland by William Hope Hudson, about a man whose house is besieged by infectious cosmic invaders. Sounds a bit familiar? It doesn't quite fit into the 3 genres mentioned above, but it does have a vision of a dying Earth in the far future. I've not read it myself, but as it served as inspiration for both H.P. Lovecraft and Terry Pratchett, I'm adding it to my reading list. Which brings us to I Am Legend, a novel by Richard Matheson. Matheson created a story about a pathogen that resulted in vampire-like symptoms wiping out mankind. Arguably, his novel is one of the first to reinvent vampires from the Gothic tradition into a more grounded sci-fi tradition. Similarly, I Am Legend didn't invent the zombie, but is one of the first to deal with the idea of an undead apocalypse. We'll go into the more adaptation successors later. In the meantime, back to the show.